Army Corps of Engineers will be opening it to ease the rising Mississippi River levels. Otherwise, communities along the river would be at risk of flooding.
That's right. The river has been rising over the past few weeks, flowing down, of course, from the north. And to get a better idea of how we got to this point, meteorologist Chris Franklin joins us live now from the spillway to explain. Chris?
Yeah, good morning, guys. We're at the Bonnet Carre Spillway. We've been talking about the historic opening, only the 12th time today in its about 87-year history. And that only occurs when we're forecasting the river to get up to 17 feet at the Carrollton Gauge, which is at the New Orleans, at the Carrollton Gauge, but also when the water flow reaches a certain point, and that's about 1.25 million cubic feet per second. We're talking about the volume of water that is actually traveling down the river. Corps of Engineers needs to keep those numbers kind of constant in order for all of the structures that are along the river, levees, dams, locks, that those aren't added extra stress on those features because of the higher water content. Now, when we talk about the river as a whole, something to keep in mind, and what's almost mind-boggling, is that nearly 31 states, U.S. states, either entirely or partially drain into the Mississippi River, including 2 Canadian provinces. So roughly 41% of the water in the nation somehow makes it into the Mississippi River, most of that flowing past New Orleans. But what's kind of interesting, and I don't know if a lot of folks know this, is that we tend not to look in terms of flooding upriver in the upper part of the Mississippi River, and I'm talking about the part of the river from Minnesota to Missouri. We actually look more toward the Ohio River Valley. That is most of the water that actually flows past Cairo, Illinois, and then down through the southern portion of the river, which eventually passes up New Orleans. So when we talk about flooding concerns, we tend to look at the snowpack and rainfall from not really the Minnesota to Missouri part of the Mississippi River. We tend to look more toward the Ohio River Valley for all of that water, which eventually, and that water has been running very, very high, and again, will continue to crest at various locations as it travels down the Mississippi River. Because of all the flood controls that we have in place in southeast Louisiana, water should never get, if and not just above, but keeping it around 17 feet at the Carrollton Gauge. Coming up a little bit later, we're talking about Carrollton, but we're also, or the Bonnet Carre Spillway. We're also going to talk about other spillways that are used to help in flood control for southeast Louisiana. For now, I'm meteorologist Chris Franklin out at the Bonnet Carre Spillway.